Yo guys, so I'm going to talk about moral objectivity, or we can call it the self, we can call it God, we can call it love, the root of self, the truth, okay? And it's good to talk about it with those different names because you start to conceptualize and understand it better. So, but the reality is that what I'm getting at is all inside of us, right? And so what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the example of extremely quote-unquote messed up behavior, unmoral people. I'm going to use the very manifestation of them as proof for the truth that this type of truth is all inside of us. This moral objectivity is all inside of us. So so if moral objectivity is all inside of us, people go, well, look at this psychopath, look at this guy. Well, I'll explain to you why that happens, right? People start behaving that way because of their moral objectivity inside of them, which is the same inside of you, okay? So they are raised in a way, and their parents abuse them, okay? Or their parents abuse each other, or their parents abuse them, right? And so now, because of the moral objectivity inside of that child, which feels the pain, is really freaked out, it's freaked out, to be honest, it's freaked out, it can't understand it, it's freaked out, okay? So the child has two options: to either cope extremely well and like extremely healthy, spiritual master, and feel the pain and sit with the pain and everything, and like maybe somehow gets heard, okay, or feels heard enough, and maybe fixes the situation, or literally sits with their suffering like a saint, like a meditation master or whatever, right? Or the child starts a coping mechanism or a defense mechanism, which we can literally just call the closing up of the heart. That's what we can call this, okay? That's what it is. Because that's what happens when because of their moral objectivity, this abuse is actually causing them a lot of pain. They can tell it's wrong, they know it's screwed up, but because nothing's fixing it, they do the defense mechanism, whereas they take it as normalized. Boom, heart starts closing up. It's literally not even a figure of speech. It's the way the truth inside of you and your heart and your love and your energy and all that responds to the truth you start creating in your head, right? So what this does for the child is, now all the abuse and all the shit they've gone through is no longer, they've tricked themselves, they've adopted the false truth that it's normalized, that it's okay, that it's normal behavior. So now they'll go and abuse their friends, they'll go and abuse animals like they were abused, because it's normalized behavior. The moment they know, they bring the truth into themselves that this behavior is not normal, that they should not be doing this behavior, they have to understand that their parents should not have been doing that behavior. The abuser should not have been doing that behavior to them. And this is the truth, but this is also paired with a lot of pain. Okay? It's the same reason, let's say someone, for whatever reason, is pushed to make a bad decision, right? They feel shame for it, right? And so now they have to say the same thing. They have the option to accept their shame, which is the best part of them, which is their moral objectivity, right? The part of you that feels bad for doing what's wrong, right? Is God, is love. So you have the ability to accept that and to embrace that, and you transmute the feelings and go into your higher self, right? Or you have the ability to run away from that feeling, right? Which is running to your worst self, because you're running away from your higher self, right? When you run away from your shame for doing something wrong, right? So what happens is, the defense mechanism happens with the ego, right? Is, oh, he deserved it, they deserve it, and I'm going to keep treating people like shit, because for you to stop treating people like shit, you would have to understand that you shouldn't have, you would have to accept fully the truth that you shouldn't have treated that person like shit, or that person like shit, or that person like shit. And it builds up more and more, and you start running faster and faster. You're like, oh, no, I'm going to treat this person like shit right now, because if I don't, then I would have to accept that I treated all these people like shit, and the list gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's where all negative like evil type shit comes from. You know, in the most basic sense, that's where it comes from. It literally comes because moral objectivity is a thing. Okay, and then I'll say there's levels in people's consciousnesses. People have different levels of consciousness, and given times they'll have different abilities to respond to stuff, to transmute anger back into the light, stuff like that, right? So an example is this. So the thing is like you're definitely part of this chain, right? And so how do you want to be part of this chain? Do you want to be someone that transmutes um, the ignorance and the unconsciousness into the light, or do you want to be someone that either makes it worse or just keeps it going down the fucking line, you know, of suffering, right? It's basically like, it's literally just thing suffers over here, and it makes this thing suffer, then it makes this thing suffer, and then it makes this thing suffer, and it makes that thing suffer. That's how it works. So if the thing can suffer over here, this thing sees through it. At the very least, this thing sees through this other thing's suffering, and it stops it right there, and it stops its own suffering, okay? And at very least, it tells this thing to fuck off. Or if the scenario is right, it can open this thing up too, and this guy can then go and do what it just did as well, and start opening up, and start at least just at the very least having the anger and the shit bounce off them. At least taking a little bit of his suffering and anger and it bounces off that person, right? Something like that. And you know, it's all about truth. It's all about the self. Okay, that's all we're getting at here. And the reality is I art thou and thou art I. So, and the trick is to pinpoint that I, to get to that I. Okay, to get to that I. That's what the trick is. Compassion, compassion, compassion. Love for people. Focus on your compassion. Get to the bottom of your compassion for your fellow humans. Okay? That might do a whole lot for you, because you might realize that's all you are.